nightclubs, parties, and now it's a lot more on the side of health and the holistic side of things and the spirituality side of things. But before we get to that, and how we got to that, where did it all begin? And
where did it all begin?
So where are you from first?
From a place called Donegal in Ireland. And then I was there till I was 18, and then I went to university in Glasgow in Scotland, and I was there from I was 18 till I was 26. So I did 5 years. I had 5 years at uni, college and uni. Did an undergraduate degree in applied chemistry, and then did a postgraduate in software engineering.
Yeah, wow.
So then, once I got my postgraduate, I went into work in a bank in Scotland, and I did like IT support while I was doing software stuff for about a year and a half, and just wasn't feeling it at all. So decided to do the rite of passage, which all Irish people have, which is, a year working holiday visa in Australia. And kind of packed my bags and said to my mum, I'll see you in a year, and then 21 years later, actually 21 years last weekend.
Wow.
I hit the shores of Australia, and
what a milestone.
This is my home now.
Yeah, wow. And would you go back? Is there anything that you miss?
I mean, look, I love the people. Like, my family's back there. But no, I mean, Australia's my home now. This is where I call home. I feel like I love going back to Ireland, and I'm lucky I get back every year because I always go to ADE and I always get like 10 days before I go back.
Yeah, wow.
To ADE. But yeah, no, this is where I'm rooted. I'll never leave Melbourne. I love Melbourne. What was
the draw card here? When you were in Ireland, so you went to Glasgow for studies? Did you look at the map and go, fuck, where am I going to go?
Nah, you know what? I mean, it happened kind of organically. I had a cousin of mine from Ireland who I was close to growing up, and he had actually come out and done a year's work on holiday visa, met an Australian girl, and was getting married in Byron Bay.
Oh, wow.
So I thought I'll time my trip, and that was the start of my trip to come out for the wedding. And then I just heard great things about Melbourne, came here on my own, and Phil, weirdly, as soon as I put my foot off the tarmac in Melbourne, I was like, I'm digging this place. Before I even got out of the airport, I was like, it just got me. And then first weekend, I had a friend of a friend, so a good friend of mine who I was friends with in Glasgow was friends with an Aussie guy who had spent 4 or 5 years in Glasgow at uni, but had left right before I got there. So me and him had never actually met. A friend of mine. Do you know George Gordos?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Great George. And George had moved back to Australia. So my first weekend here, I got my friend who I knew had introduced me to George. George picked me up first weekend, took me to a barbecue. 48 hours later, I was in Revolver first weekend.
With best friends.
Best friends, yeah, exactly. And so randomly, that group that I met on that first weekend, there's 2 or 3 of those guys are still like my best friends.
Wow.
Yeah. Swedish John, you know Swedish John?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think I will met them throughout the traps, yes. Yeah. And so was music ever was that always in the foreground as you were growing up?
Yeah.
Because you've obviously DJed, you've worked in the scene.
I came in our family at home, like, I mean, my 2 brothers are good musicians. My younger brother in particular, we were always like encouraged to play an instrument, piano. Like, I kind of grew up playing a little bit of piano when I was growing up. I'd be the least musical out of the lot of us. But then when I went to Glasgow and, started discovering the electronic music scene, a few close friends of mine, they had like vinyl decks, and I was like, what are these all about? So immediately became hooked on mixing on vinyl, and it was kind of like a hobby starting out. And then, we kind of had a bit of a crew. We were going out every weekend, and then we started running a few like little events like boat parties and stuff, and I did a few of those in Glasgow. And then when I was coming out to Australia, a few people had said to me, it's a bit of an opportunity out there. So I basically took a bag of records with me, and records, back in the day, right. Took a bag of records, and then found this really cool record shop called Central Station, and I went in there every week and started to get.
And for people that don't know, where was that? Because
it was originally on Swanson Street, and then it moved over to Little Burke Street.
That's right.
So
Swanson was downstairs.
That's right. And then so I was on I came over here and I was on a work and holiday visa for a year. I was buying records in this record store and became really good friends with the guys in there. And then, ended up getting a job in there actually. And
records are on tap.
Records are on tap. That getting that job in there changed my life, because at the end of my work and holiday visa, I ended up getting sponsored
By them?
Yeah, by the store.
Oh,
yeah,
wow,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. So to stay on, and then there was this thing happened where the original owner, he got quite sick, and he basically sold the shop to me and some of the other owners. So do you know DJ from Melbourne, Frosty, runs Animal Dancing? Andy Frost, yeah. And Jeanette, DJ Jeanette, and a guy Jimmy. So the four of us took over the store.
And you guys all bought into it.
Well, exactly.
Sounds like like the movie Tower Records.
Yeah, exactly.
Everyone's bought into it. And,
yeah, exactly.
Cool.
So we had it, and then it was. The Central Station thing was a franchise. So then we decided to drop that name, and we set up our own record store called Here Now.
Okay.
So it was going really, really well for like quite a few years, and then I remember there was like a moment. So in 2008, Beatport launched and iTunes dropped in the market.
Yeah.
And our record sales just fell through the floor, and so I was sponsored by this business, and if the business went under, I was going to have to leave Australia.
Wow.
So by that stage, we started running events, and I had some contacts from my days DJing in Glasgow and stuff, which wasn't that long before that on the grand scheme of things, like 4 or 5 years. So we started bringing some artists out and touring them and stuff, and then I got my permanent residency in 2009. And then we just kind of realized that like the actual retail vinyl store wasn't going to go anywhere, because records, everybody was buying digital.
100%. Was that so? When that happened, obviously that's a defining moment where it's the COVID moment where sales just dropped.
Yeah.
Well, what do you do? So was it the events?
I remember, Phil. I remember our record sales in the space of about 8 months. Our weekly package of records went from 3,000 to 300.
Wow.
Yeah. So we started doing equipment. We started doing a lot of tickets. We were doing merchandise, T-shirts, all that kind of stuff. And the store was kind of started out breaking even, but then it was starting to lose money. But then the events and the tour side of things kept things afloat a bit. But we were all kind of musically heading in different directions. So it just got to a point where we just decided, I was actually the first one to leave the business. I said, guys, look, I just don't feel this is going to be sustainable in the long term, and just, left quite amicably, and the other guys kept it on for a while. And then they, after 6 or 8 months, they kind of had the same realization as I did. And and me and Frosty and Jeanette are all still friends. I haven't seen Jimmy for a while now, but we're all still working in music, and we cross paths quite regularly.
Melbourne's quite small, and
absolutely. So we've all kind of kept our career heads on, stayed in the industry, and so then in 2009, when I went out on my own, I'd had a bit of experience doing events and bringing artists out and touring, so I went out and set up Thick as Thieves, and I was the start of the touring company.
And who was the first, who would you say the first international artist was? Or what was the first party?
I remember who was the first international artist. It was a guy called Mowgli.
Mowgli,
yeah. You remember that? Yeah, so he was the very first tour I did, and that was actually through the record store. And I'd done 5 or 6 tours through the record store, and then when I left, those guys kind of kept touring with me. Do you remember Audio Jack?
Yeah, of course.
They're still coming out every year.
Yeah.
There was a couple of guys, Format B.
Okay, yeah. That's the scene that I was like.
Phil Kieran.
Yeah, Phil Kieran.
Yeah,
Hunterman.
Yeah.
Did you bring out Hunterman?
No, we didn't bring out Hunterman.
There was a tattoo party. There was a party at Tattoo that was Hunterman and Kieran.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Was,
the old bottom end.
Yeah.
That's
that
right.
Was a banging party. I can't remember who they. I thought that was you.
That was it was the likes of you.
Yes, it was. That was a brilliant party.
Yeah. There we go. That's going back a few years. So
It made me thirsty.
Yeah. So that was and since that I've just been like every year, I started out completely on my own, and then got just as it got bigger, started bringing more people on board and doing more tours and more events, and then the size of the event started growing, and kind of got me to where I am now.
And I guess so that's from 2009.
Yeah.
So that's 15 years.
15 years this year.
Okay, cool. And is there anything that in that 15 years, I'm sure there's stories and there's moments where you're either pulling your hair out or you're like, this is great. Tell me how, and navigate me through the two from that moment. Obviously everything's not been.
Yeah. Look, there's obviously been specific moments, probably a good moment was that I remember in particular was we were doing, I was doing lots of club shows, and it was like, in Melbourne, actually, there's a timber yard, but the timber yard wasn't there. But you had like 3 or 4 venues, which were Brown Alley, Bottom End, Prince of Wales, that are all about 12 to 1500 cap. And then there was nothing then at the gap until you had something like Riva. So, teaming up with the Untitled guys and us doing our first Riva show, because, it was a huge jump in regard to capacity, but also in risk. Because, the cost of doing the bigger shows is much higher. But I'm pretty sure the first one we did was Clapton, and then, we did Patrick Topping and MK and all these bigger acts, and these bigger shows started to work well. And then you start doing bigger shows at other venues. We're doing like Coburg Velodrome and Burnley Circus and, stuff like that there. So that was probably quite a defining moment. That was probably like 2017, making the jump from like, just
up in the game, basically.
Up in the game, yeah, totally. And having the confidence to do it and having good partners. And having Damo on board at the time as well, who's obviously a good friend of yours. Damo was working at Wawa for years and came in with a huge marketing background and knowledge background, and just everything kind of seemed to fit in at the right time in the right place. We like I was touring acts who started as small acts, but on a global level, whose popularity had jumped, like Patrick Topping, for example.
So you moved with those artists?
Yeah, getting on those artists first and watching their growth, and so a combination of like, probably having acts that were like really current and relevant and popularity growth, having Damo on board, so like, being able to scale the events from within our team, and then having Untitled on board as a partner, having like, because they came out of nowhere and they were just these really young guys that were all of a sudden doing these huge events.
Yeah, they were,
So they brought a lot of experience, and, and they were plugged into like a completely different market to what we were. They were really tapping into the 18 to 24 year olds.
Yeah, right.
So
and as we are.
Exactly.
It's completely different. And I guess, as partying and the scene and being in it is not sustainable. But I remember there was a moment where I'd see your events and you started tying in your events with a foundation.
That's right.
Fred Hollows. And how did that come about, and where did that
Phil. So when I was at college, when I was like 18 or 19 years old back in Ireland, I had this one real moment in time that completely, had a lasting effect on me. There was like, a guy like an albino, they're really short-sighted, and he was at our college, and there was like a floating staircase in the college. So, like what you see in a prison, just in the middle of the landing, it went up and it had a flat bit over and went up again. And he must have been in a rush for class or something, but he didn't see it, and he walked straight into it and cracked his head, and his books all fell, and like he cut his head. And I remember these guys started laughing at him, and like I was looking at this, and it just broke me. I went over to the guy and I was like, picked up his books, "Are you all right?" And he just kind of gave me this look, and he was like, "Oh, mate, like stuff like this happens to me all the time." And I went over and gave the guys who were laughing at him a spray, and I was just like, you inconsiderate motherfuckers, and I went home that night, and I like literally ended up bawling, and I was just like, I couldn't help feeling, what did that poor guy do in life to deserve to have to deal with that on a daily basis? And I made a decision that night, I was like 18 or 19 years old, that I was like, whenever I was in the position to try and do something to help people with impaired vision, I would do it. So when I set up Thick as Thieves, I was like, right, I'm gonna incorporate this into my business from day one. So I was obviously in a very kind of, I guess, privileged position that I was dealing with all these big artists. I'd built relationships with them from doing shows and tours for years. So I remember the first one was Clapton, and we were doing a show, I think it was at Riva, and the show sold out. And I remember just speaking to Clapton and his manager and just saying, guys, look, I've got this idea. I'd like, there's obviously a demand for a show. for more people to see this show. I know the normal protocol is to sell a bunch more tickets and everybody make a bunch more money, but we've achieved our goal here. How about we do another show? I'll resource it. We'll do all the marketing. All you have to do is turn up for an hour and a half on a Thursday night. You're in town anyway.
Yep.
We'll give all the money from the door to the Fred Hollows Foundation, and we'll see how it goes. And they were like, Mike, this sounds like a great idea, let's do it. And it just, from the get-go, Phil, it was just phenomenally successful. It was just like people came out in droves, and people who didn't have a chance to see the artist first time around got to see them. People really liked the fact that everybody was doing this for free. We made it public on our socials. Nobody was taking any profit.
There was transparency.
The artist was playing for free. And it just seemed to be a kind of win-win, because the artists got to show to their fans that they were doing something good to give back to the community.
Of course.
I got to support a foundation that was very close to my heart, and then the foundation, the first show we did, we raised like 25 grand.
Yeah, wow.
And I remember walking into the Fred Hollows office before this happened, and I had said to them, look, they didn't know who I was, and I said, look, I want to fundraise for you guys, and I told them what I do, and they were like, yeah, on you go. And then I walked back in, and I had like this check for 25 grand, and I passed it over, and then I left, and then I went back to them a few months later, and we had done another show, I think, with Patrick Topping, and then done one with Kolsch, and all these big artists. I just kept going in, and obviously 10 years later I've got a strong relationship with Fred Hollows, but they told me behind the scenes, they were like, who is this bloody dude, keeps doing these shows at Revolver of all places and bringing in these checks of money for us, it was not something they'd seen coming. And I think as well, I was just like putting the shows on sale and giving them the money. But I think as well, in hindsight, like to raise 25 grand was a big ask for a lot of other people that are trying to fundraise. Mm-hmm. It was quite a substantial amount of money, and we were just managing to knock this off with every show. So, it was, I think that, Fred Hollows are obviously like very grateful, and they also have told me as well that they've noticed in Melbourne that their followers in Melbourne, they've got a much higher percentage of 18 to 30 year olds than they do in any other city in Australia.
I dare say because of
when we were doing the shows, Phil, what we would do is like when anybody would come in to go to one of these shows, when they paid their entry fee, we always did this thing where Fred Hollows can restore the gift of sight for $25. So we would always charge $25,
okay.
And as people come in, we'd give them a little thing with information on Fred Hollows saying, you've managed to restore the eyesight of one person by being here tonight. So people would then dig in and follow the foundation. So there's actually like some data that when people tend to follow a charity when they're young, they tend to follow it the whole way through their lives. So Fred Hollows, like it was like almost like it had a two-pronged approach for them, or I guess result for them, where number one, we were raising money, but also it was getting people involved from a young age, and people were getting intrigued by what they were doing, and a lot of those people still follow the foundation now, even though they're not going out or going to parties or stuff, you know. So yeah.
Would you and would you say, so how long has it been since you've been working with Fred Hollows?
I think we did the first event in 2013, maybe 2014.
Okay,
yeah,
so 10 years.
10 years, yeah.
And in 10 years, how much would you say you've helped raise?
Yeah, like through. I mean, it's not specifically me, but we obviously we've got the music events and then the Quickest Thieves run. So I think we're at about 2.3 million.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a great effort.
Yeah. So I'm very. As I said, it's not just me, Phil. It's just I kind of harness the network and the people around me to galvanize, to work together as a group,
And you mentioned Quickest Thieves, and I think that's another aspect of your business that you've established over the last few years, and I've noticed on your socials you're always out there running down our park. I've got to get out there, but my knees are cool. So tell me how did that come about as well, and what's the
in 2014. I decided I was going to do like an Ironman triathlon. I'd never done anything like that before. And when I signed up for the Ironman, I noticed that there was a bunch of options where you could
Well, how did you get to the Ironman?
Phil, it was funny. I grew up swimming, and then in 2011, 12 and 13, me and a bunch of my mates were doing these, these Tough Mudder events.
Yes,
So it's like a 20k run with a bunch of obstacles.
Yes.
And somehow I'd always like really had this thing about the Ironman where it was, it's like obviously a 3.8k swim, 180k on the bike, and a marathon run. And it always mesmerized me that this thing was so long and so challenging.
How are people doing this?
How do people do this? I'd gone to Rainbow Serpent one year with my ex. We broke up when we came back. And I was feeling pretty down myself. I was literally, Phil, going out to go on a bender.
Yeah.
And I'm not joking. I walked past a bike shop and I saw a bike hanging in the window, and a switch inside my head went, you're single, you've got more time.
Yeah.
Now's the time to do this. That was in Rainbow was in January.
And
so that was
distraction from just what was going on.
I literally bought a bike and signed up for the Busselton Ironman, which was in December the following year.
In Busselton?
In Busselton in Western Australia.
River. Yeah.
So I signed up for this Ironman and basically, I told a few people, and they were like, oh, so I didn't know you did triathlons. And I was like, I haven't done a triathlon. And they were like, you're tripping, there's no way you'll go from 0 to Ironman within a year. Yeah.
And plus Busselton, mind you didn't mention, what was it, bike, run, swim, and dodge sharks.
Yeah, exactly.
That's full of pointers and shit. Like, why it's out that way?
Yeah. So anyway, I decided I was going to try and go hell for leather at this thing, and I really committed to it from day one, and I joined the triathlon club, and it was like, that was amazing because like I met this group of people who were like so incredibly supportive, and I'm still really good mates with a lot of them to this day. And we used to like, go out doing long runs and long bike rides every weekend together, but as it came closer to the time,
which was when, Rainbow
was in January, signed up, start of Feb, and the event was on I think 10th of December that year.
Okay, so you had
spent the whole winter, training, and got myself into really good shape. And but when you were doing the Ironman, when you registered, you could elect to do it for a charity. So I thought, I'll try and do something for Fred Hollows here. I was already doing the music events. And I put a sponsorship link up just saying, I'm doing the Ironman, and I would kind of play it on the words a bit, said like, used to different type of endurance events, run around Revolver 24 hours at a time, all this kind of stuff. And Phil actually got like really well supported. Like it blew me away how much people were like, wow. And then there was actually a couple of like the electronic music media articles kind of, we're doing this thing, like this nightclub promoter's doing this thing that are, these two shouldn't live in the same world together.
Yeah, definitely.
And
But I'm also curious to know, and you kind of touched on it, was that besides being the physicality and you did what you brought up is that yes, you went on a bender, and yes, you broke up with a girlfriend, and you've seen the bike, but there's obviously the emotions of how growing as men as well. We're growing up, and sometimes there aren't people to talk to, or you don't speak to your mates, and we always look for kind of physicality to kind of run away from or work out or shit. Did that come into it as well?
I mean, it probably did, and it was weird, Phil, you mentioned that, because I became friends with really good friends with this group of like guys who were doing the Ironman, and you'd go out on these 6-hour bike rides, and everybody would just like let everything out while you were chatting, life stuff and problems, guys talking about problems in their marriages or whatever, So it was almost like a form of therapy in itself, the whole process was very, very good for me, and I got a lot out of it. So anyway, I did the Ironman. That was 2014. And then the following year, a really good friend of mine, Ollie Davis, who Ollie decided he was going to do an Ironman. And while Ollie was training, I said, Ollie, you should throw a sponsorship link up on your page, because I did that and I got really well supported. So Ollie did that, and the same thing happened to him, where people were just like, man, this is amazing, and throwing money at him. So both of us had this experience of people contributing a lot of money to the foundation.
Of course.
So the following year after that, a few other people kind of said to us, let us know if you're doing anything else. So me and Ollie found that there was an event at the time down the coast called Coast Trek, which was a 60-kilometer it was 60 kilometer. You could either run or walk or hike it or whatever. But it was 60 kilometers, and it was over pretty difficult terrain. There was like a 8K stretch of beach down the coast down by Portsea and stuff.
Okay. Yeah.
So that was a Fred Hollows
back beach.
Yeah,
that way.
Yeah, it was a Fred Hollows specific event. They probably had like 2,000 people doing it, and you had to have a team of 4, and the team of 4 had to have at least one female in it.
Okay.
So we got a team of 4. We got 2 female friends of ours, and we put in a team of 4. And again, we documented our journey, and socials got really well supported. The next year we had 2 teams of 4, and then quite a few people hit me up as we were doing the 3rd year. Quite a few people hit me up, so I was like, during the training process, this event was always on in May. I would start training everybody just after New Year, and we'd all go out for like group runs and stuff together to get fit. And quite a few people started saying, "Oh, this looks like a fun thing to do in New Year." So the 3rd year we had 6 teams of 4.
Yeah, well,
there was 2 distances you could do. You could do a 30K or a 60K. So there was always one of our 2 of our teams would do the 60K and the rest would do the 30K. But for a lot of these people, like, they were going from 0. So to get the 30K over this difficult terrain was quite a challenge. And I remember year 3, there was quite a few like high profile DJs like Benson and a few other people did it. And it seemed to garner this attention. So then this was going into year 4, which was going into 2020. I remember so clearly Phil putting up a post saying, "Hey everybody, we're going to do the Coast Trek event this year." And if quite a few people have hit me up, I'm prepared to train anybody, or you can join our training groups if you want. There's just one ground rule. It's like, if you commit to it, you have to make an effort to raise $1,000.
Yeah.
Phil, I remember I woke up the next morning and I had 115 people saying I'm in.
Yeah,
and
right.
I was just going like, whoa, this thing's, what the hell has happened,
Yeah, awesome.
So we started training everybody in January, and we had these big groups of people out training, and then COVID happened in March. So the event was supposed to be in May. Obviously, world got shut down, and then it at that time it was moved till August, and we thought we'd be back up and running by August. So during that period, then we had the lockdowns and everything, and you could exercise in groups of 2 and 5K radius and all this. So I set up all these WhatsApp groups and got everybody training, and everybody said to me that like a lot of these WhatsApp groups and the community that we built online. And for example, everybody was going training in groups of 2 at Albert Park Lake. But, there was like 20 groups of 2. So you were kind of like meeting your mates around, "Hey, how you doing? Are you hanging in okay?" And just having a bit of a social interaction.
During a period where, mental.
A lot of people said that like that period, having the groups really helped their mental health,
100%.
Yeah, and having the camaraderie and being able to get fit and being able to also
be part of something,
but also get out of the late nights drinking, partying.
And COVID also was great for people getting together on the down low.
Yeah.
And that wasn't great.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll be honest, I did that for that first half of that first lockdown. It was a fucking schmozzle. Same thing. So I think finding something. I think a lot of people either went one way or the other, and I personally found the restructuring and re-engineering what I was doing and going and getting a job at Australia Post. Working with the St Kilda football team because they were doing the same thing. It kind of gave me a bit of confidence going, "Oh, I can do this. If the footy players are doing it, then why shouldn't I be doing it?" So I think, by doing what you were doing, and then bringing that camaraderie together of people outside of work and not having anything else. Then
absolutely. Yeah, and like there was a lot of the people doing it found themselves, because the clubs and pubs were all shut down, and then they had this group encouraging them to get fit and healthy, and all the WhatsApp groups were promoting good eating habits, and people were finally able to like regulate their sleep, and you ended up with this group of like nightclub promoters and DJs who were like so fit and healthy. So the event was postponed till August, and then about July we were still deep in lockdown, and it just by this stage all this group had been training for like 5 or 6 months. They were super fit and healthy. And then we kind of got the news that like August wasn't going to happen either, and I was just like, oh man, I was quite deflated. And I remember I went for a walk one day with my dog, and I bumped into one of my old triathlon buddies who was working for Port Phillip Council. And he was asking me how I was going, and I was like, man, I'm in this strange situation. I've got all these young DJs and promoters, all super healthy. They're all prepared to raise $1,000. We've no fucking event. And the guy was just like, well, I'm working for Port Phillip, just run your own event. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, run your own running event, Mike. And I was like, I don't know anything about running events. And he was like, mate, it's the same as running a music event. Instead of a stage, you have a start-stop line. Instead of bars, you got aid stations. You still need first aid, you need a permit. And so he sat down with me and he said, hopefully we'll be out of the lockdown by like December. Let's put December on the map and let's try and, get this event off the ground. This is too good of an opportunity to let pass by. So I sat down with him and I got amazing help from like a lot of sponsors and stuff, and we set up our own Quick as Thieves event, and we ran the first one. And
that was the one that started and stopped at Riva, yes?
Yeah, that's correct. At the end of November. So we had 3 distances. We had the half marathon, full marathon, and we had an ultra marathon. So the course at that point was like, it was from Riva down past Sandringham and back, and that was a half marathon. So obviously the half marathoners did it once, the full marathoners did it twice, and at that stage the ultra marathoners did it 3 times, which is 63k. And then everybody, we raised like 250k the first year, and then we went into the summer opened up again, but then as we were coming into May, June, everything started to shut down the following year, and everybody started going, Mike, are we doing this thing again? We need something to latch onto here. So we ran it a second time, and we had like, I think 240 people doing it, and raised 600k the second year, and then the third year we had 300, and we raised 800k. So it's been like, I think the events raised like 1.6 million over 3 years. And now we decided last year, the first year we did it, which was the first year of COVID, I remember we had a particularly warm winter, but the last 2 winters have been quite brutal. And I remember people just saying, oh, can we move it to the summertime? So I think a combination of people, a lot of people being away during the winter now when we opened, when flights opened and stuff like that, post-COVID, the weather being better, and also just wanting to give a bit of a breather, like give 18 months between events rather than a year. We've decided we're doing the next one on May 11th, 2024. And we've had a phenomenal response this year. We're going to do record numbers this year in regard to runners, and also like hoping to raise the bar again with the money raised.
Phenomenal.
Yeah.
When where to after this? Phil,
you know what? I don't want to get too far ahead. Like I feel, I just want to focus on making this year a success. Obviously, you don't know what kind of curveballs life's going to throw at you, and the one thing COVID's taught us is never plan too far ahead. So I feel like, I watch a lot of boxing, and I feel like, when boxers get asked before a fight, what to after this, and they say, I'm not looking past this one. That's kind of where my head's at with it. Like, just try and smash this one, make the best of it, and try and obviously, my goal is this year, try and raise $1 million. So I feel it's achievable. We've had a lot of good feedback from the start. So let's see.
Where do you draw this inspiration and this energy from? I remember a few years ago there was a post of you in between all the books.
What?
The books that you read.
Yeah.
And it kind of kicked me in the ass because I love reading as well.
Yeah.
But I was like, fuck, how did Mike read so much fucking books?
Yeah.
I maybe read about a quarter of that.
Yeah.
And how does that work? What's the drive?
Yeah.
Where does it stem from?
I mean, Phil, it's like, I don't know if that's particularly drive. Like, the cause is something that I'm very passionate about, and when you have passion about something, the drive comes automatically. I'm surrounded by amazing people who help me. I enjoy running and keeping fit, so it's very time consuming, but also I'm very aware as well that I get incredibly well supported. There's not a day goes by I'm immensely grateful for the support I get and the help I get with it, and I enjoy the process, Phil. There's obviously, I'm getting up every morning at 5:20.
5:20.
Yeah, like 6 days a week.
What does it look like? What does the morning look like?
Like the morning. Well,
you're obviously reading 20 pages.
No, I always look at what the positives I can get out of these situations are. I used to be very, very disorganized, and I literally cannot afford to be disorganized now. when I go to bed at night, I have to have everything sitting out in the morning, and I can just get up and get my stuff and go. Because, like, for example, like on a Thursday morning, we're running at Princess Park, but I live in Blackrock, so it's an hour travel.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, I have to be out the door like probably 5:30. So I have to get up, like I just eat quickly and then just out the door.
Yeah.
So I have to have all my stuff ready, my lunch, all my training fuel, my stuff for the gym, stuff to have a shower at the gym after I train. So yeah, like, you know, but I think, Phil, with anything, you know, when I was doing the endurance events like the Ironman or these other runs, you kind of get into like I just get into a headspace of going, right, May the 11th, that's the finish line. This is how it has to be for the next 16 weeks.
Yeah.
And just, you know, I've got a very simple theory. It's like, don't think about it. Just, that's what it is. Just like every day, you know what you're doing. You know where you're going to be running. You know you're going to be at Princess Park Thursday. You're going to be the Lake Friday, Lake Saturday. You're going to be in Botanic Garden Sunday, and you can't deviate from that. You know, you just accept that's what it's going to be like, and just kind of get on with it. You know.
But back to the question about the books.
Yeah, about the books. Sorry. Yeah.
What was that for that year, for example?
I mean, Phil, I think that year. Sorry. I thought you meant drive in regard to the.
No, just the passion. Like, obviously, the passion of what you do and has driven you to read those books. You know? Yeah.
Well, that was, Phil. You know, I mean, I'm sure same as yourself. You're always trying to be the best version of yourself. I know it's a bit of a cliche, but you know, you hear this expression, leaders are readers, and you know, all the top CEOs now, they all put time aside every day to read. You know, you hear about people like Bill Gates and Tim Cook and all these guys that are just like they allow blocks of reading, and you know, success leaves clues. And I remember that particular year, I said to myself, I'm going to carry a book with me everywhere I go, and I just. Those times whether it be standing in the bank in a queue or waiting on your coffee, they're the times that you normally lift your phone and just do that there. And just instead of that, I was just like reading through pages.
Page 33 and then you go.
I set myself a target of trying to read a book a week. I think I read like 42 books that year. But some of the books, some of the knowledge you get, and
100%.
The education you get, and you know, you tend to see a lot of the same things or the same, I guess, values and ideas repeated over and over again by these successful people, and then you just learn to take that on. You know, I mean, it was a very, very beneficial year, and I haven't thrown away one of those books. I never will. I do reread stuff.
Yeah,
you know,
like that's how you beat it into yourself. As well,
absolutely.
When you go back and you go through
it's
the
funny,
highlights.
Phil, because there's one of the top 3 books I've ever read is this book called Born to Run, and it's
by who?
It's Anthony McDougall, I think is the guy, but it's a story about this, which I can kind of relate to. It's about this guy. He was a journalist, but he was a 6'3" heavy American dude, and every time he tried running, he tried to run, he would get injured, and he kept going to doctors, and the doctors kept saying, "You're not a runner," you know, westernized doctors. But he found out that there was this tribe in Mexico called the Tamarahara, and these guys, they run all day, every day, like people in their 80s running marathons, but they're not racing marathons. This is just what they do. And he said, like, how can these people run all the time and never get injured, and I can't? So it's this story about him going to track them down and living with them for a while, and then them competing in this ultra marathon race. But it's very, very inspirational. I actually came across this book when I was doing my Ironman, and I saw the current Ironman world champion at the time. He basically recommended everybody reading this book, and it really got me. So now every year when I start my run training, I read this book, and it just gives me
that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, right. So what's on this year? Where are you running to this year?
Well, this year, I mean, obviously I've tried to, up the challenge that I've done every year. Like last year, we increased the distance of our ultra marathon, our quickest thieves, from 63 to 100k. So that's what I did last year. The year before that, I had ran the marathon blindfolded. But this year, I kind of feel like I want to do something that's not specifically focused on me. So there's this. I go running every Sunday morning with this group called the Achilles Group, and It's a voluntary organisation that help people with disabilities exercise and go for a run. And there's a group of blind runners. So for the last I think maybe 3 years, I've been meeting up every Sunday, and I take a blind runner for a run. And there's this one blind runner. He's very inspirational. He'll be 59 this year. His name's Mick, and he started running 2 years ago. And the first day he ran, he couldn't even do 2 kilometers.
Yeah, wow.
And he wants to run a marathon in under 4 hours this year, which is like only 10% of people who try a marathon can run it under 4 hours. So like I'm going to try and guide him to run this marathon under 4 hours.
Wow.
So yeah, we've been out training every Sunday morning. Knocked off 23k yesterday morning around the town, and
wow,
yeah. If people see me running around,
what's his name?
His name's Mick.
Mick.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. So if people see me running around the town with somebody attached to me, it's not like some kind of sex fetish or anything like that. There, it's I'm guiding the blind runner. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. And I love that. That's where this whole journey's led you to. I'm pretty happy with what I've heard. I guess it leaves a door open till next time I catch up with you to hear about where that's taken you and where you've gone. And it's, I don't know if there's anything else that you wanted to.
Just look, if anybody wants to join a run group and come and do Quick as Thieves this year, there's a 10k entry level run. People just want to take part and get involved and support the foundation. But it's a really fun day, fun event, and hopefully get as many people as down possible. It has the double whammy of you get to contribute to help other people, but you also get to make a huge positive health change in your life as well.
Of course. And if you're not running, you can always hit the dance floor and go for a walk.
Exactly. we'll do that after.
Well, thank you.
No worries, Phil. Great to chat as always, mate.
Thank you.
All right, cool, bro.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers, man.
All good?
All good, thank you.
No worries.